Thank you, AV. The Committee on Aviation, Ground Transportation, Regulatory Concerns, and Future Generations now convenes this hearing. In accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices for today's proceedings were sent to the media on Tuesday, May 6, 2014, and again on Friday, May 9, 2014. Notice was also posted on the Guam Legislature website beginning May 6, 2014. For the record, today is Tuesday, May 13, 2014, and the time is now 2:02 in the afternoon. The committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the following items: the nomination of Mr. Edward G. Untalan to serve as a member of the A.B. Wampat International Airport Authority Guam Board of Directors, and Bill number 277-32, introduced by Senator Brant T. McCready. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my colleagues present. To my immediate right is Senator McCready, and to my immediate left is Senator Eileen Yamashita. I'm going to go ahead and dispense with the general rules for the public hearing. We've all kind of been through this before. I've been having a lot of hearings at the airport, the confirmation hearings. It's great. I'm glad to have Mr. Untalan back again. And we'll go ahead and call individuals who signed up to testify in favor of Mr. Untalan's nomination. We have Mr. Peter Roy Martinez. Sir? And Vic, you just indicated in favor, but no testimony. Okay. Hi, Peter. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Mike, Senator Eileen, and Senator McCready. My name is Pedro R. Martinez, and I'm the Deputy Director for the A.B. Wampat International Airport. And I'm here to testify on the reappointment of Edward G. Untalan to the Guam Board of Directors at the airport. Dear Senator Mike, Senator Nicholas, this is to support the reappointment of Mr. Edward G. Untalan to the A.B. Wampat International Airport Authority Guam Board of Directors. Appointed in December 2012, Mr. Untalan has served as a member and then was elected to chairman of the board in 2013. He has been committed to creating safe, efficient, and economical operations of Guam-only civilian airport and pride of the people of Guam. Central to his chairmanship, policies that direct management is to be responsive to the airport consumers, the passengers, tenants, airlines, and users, be a community player and an economic catalyst for the island. Under these tenets, the airport has achieved significant milestone during its service on the board of directors. His financial expertise set the tone for a successful sale of the 2013 General Revenue Bonds, which led to nearly $1.7 billion in institutional orders and significantly lower interest rates, which closed in September 2013. Committed to economic opportunity and being a good neighbor, he has directed management to promote the opportunity to businesses, service providers, and the community to take part in over $150 million in bond-funded capital improvement projects that will greatly enhance airport facilities and services. It is his public spiritedness and committed civic engagement that Mr. Untalan is able to lead the agency with fiduciary vigilance required of a complex public corporation. On behalf of airport management and staff, we are in full support of Governor Edward B. Calvo's reappointment of Edward G. Untalan to the A.B. Wampat International Airport Board of Directors and look forward to a productive and successful relationship under his continued leadership. Thank you. And Senator Algon. Hi. Buenas.
Thank you, Peter Roy Duany. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Senator Algan has also joined us. And any questions for Mr. Martinez? Thank you, Peter Roy.
Thank you.
That's all we have in terms of oral testimony who signed up today. I'd like to call up Mr. Antalan to please join us. And whenever you're ready, go ahead and state your name for the record and you can begin your presentation.
Hafide, Chairman San Nicolas, distinguished senators of the 32nd Guam Legislature, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Antalan, and I'm coming again before this body almost a year and 3 months later to request your support on my reconfirmation as a member of the Board of Directors for the AB1 PED Guam International Airport. And by the way, for the record, Edward G. Antalan, the G doesn't stand for Gao, okay, it just stands for Gil. Just saying. Anyhow, that's it. After being confirmed last year, I originally began my tenure as the chairperson on the Finance Subcommittee. After the resignation of the former chairman, Mr. Frank Torres, in September of 2013, and having been unanimously voted by the remaining directors to assume his position, I assumed the role of chairman on October 2013. I have to admit the last year and 3 months have been quite exciting, with 4 main accomplishments I would like to note. The first is the selection of a new concessionaire, which has helped the airport tremendously in terms of its revenues. The second is the successful issuance of the 2013 GIA bonds. Third is the release of an unqualified audit for fiscal year 2012-2013. And finally, the commencement of the development of the Tizan Parkway. Going forward, the next couple of years will prove to be even more exciting. With $150 million in grant and bond funds, the board has tasked management to push out as many projects as quickly as possible, not only to benefit the GIA, but to help stimulate jobs in the construction industry. The 2 largest projects that are vital and specific to the airport are the new arrivals corridor, which is estimated to be about $54 million, and the relocation of the hold bag screening area, estimated about $26 million. While it is estimated that it will take approximately 3 years to complete the corridor, the board is pushing to reduce that timeline. With its completion, we'll be able to finally get rid of those gray dividers, and the relocation of the hold bag screening to an area behind the ticket counters would provide for additional counter space, both leading to a more pleasant customer experience. During my confirmation hearing last year, I was asked what I wanted to accomplish as a board member, and I had mentioned that I wanted to see a set of core values established. Over the last 15 months, I was able to review the organization's strategic plan, which had vision and mission statements stated. I also discovered that the plan has not been updated for a couple of years. Many items have been accomplished, but it was created via a top-down approach. I have tasked management to update the plan, but now through a bottoms-up approach, where the employees would all have input, giving them a sense of ownership. Through this plan, I would now like to see these core values created. While I have a laundry list of other things I would like to also see accomplished, my desire is to simply transform the GIA into a property and operation that not only our island visitors can be proud of, but especially our local people. Last year I had asked, and you provided me with your support. If this body should determine that I am still qualified to continue to serve on the board, I would be humbled and honored to do so. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. Just for the record, we do have written testimony submitted by Mr. Eduardo Camacho of CU Holdings Incorporated and Monsignor James Beneventi of the Doce Nombre de Maria Cathedral Basilica. Thanks, Ed, for accepting the renomination again. You know, it's always great having a financial professional such as yourself able to get on board, and I know that the leadership you've been providing up at the airport has been exceptional. I did have one question, and this is actually something that's been a part of an overall bigger picture that I've been looking at with respect to a lot of the debt financing we've been taking out. And I especially want to talk to you about it because we speak almost the same language with respect to understanding how the numbers work out. And on the airport bond, we had 1.7 billion in orders, but how much was the actual amount that we were looking to fund for that bond? It was a fraction, I know.
Yeah, I think we had, how much was it total? 247
Yeah, about
million.
247 million.
Of which about 110 million was for new money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that 247 million, we had an oversubscription rate of like billion.
That's right, that's right.
You know, and so one of the things I've been really just pondering is, whenever they do like an IPO, right, like for a stock,
Right.
and if it's oversubscribed, then the market drives down the price.
The rate should go down.
That's right. And so with the bond, the same thing. You know, when they set the interest rate, when it's oversubscribed, it drives down the rate. But if the interest rate is set way too high, even if there's a lot of oversubscriptions, it's not there isn't a lot of balance in where they're setting that rate. You get what I'm saying? And it's something that's kind of been alarming me with a lot of our bonds.
Mhm.
You know, we get a lot of front page news. Oh, 400%, 600% oversubscribed, and it sounds like good news. But as a financial professional, for me, it's kind of puts up a red flag, and it's like, why are we pricing our interest rate so high
Right.
that we're getting 600% oversubscriptions? Maybe if we had 200, 300, that's something that's more reasonable. But to be getting 1.7 billion in orders for only 250 million in actual debt tells me that our interest rate probably should have been much lower to start with.
Right.
And then maybe we would have had maybe 500 million in orders or 750 million in orders. That would have driven it down lower, but we probably priced it too high. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's been something that I've been, and also with your background in Gita,
Yeah.
you're pretty familiar with that. So it's just something that's really been kind of standing out to me. What do you think about that? Do you think that 1.7 billion was probably a little, was kind of telling that maybe our rate that we initially started out with on the offering was a little high?
Well, I think what had occurred was it had been a while since we had been to the market. And it was essential that we start to educate a lot of the investors, particularly after Typhoon Pongsona, the damage, the tourism numbers, the military buildup, then all of a sudden the stall. So we had to put out a good story. And in order to be able to do that, we actually, in coordination with the underwriter and Gita as the financial advisor, we had to technically go and put on a roadshow. Not only meeting with the rating agencies, but a number of institutional investors from San Francisco to Chicago to Boston and then to New York. And I think that drove the interest. And maybe you could be, in retrospect, maybe you're right that with that much demand, we should have driven that price a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
But being that what was presented by our advisors, that was what the market was dictating at that point in time, it was what was accepted at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going forward, one of the things in Gita, when I was there, was that we always had a checks and balance. In other words, when the underwriters would come and tell me what was our rate, I had somebody in the background telling me that's what the market is really offering. I'm not too sure if that's what exactly happened there, but at the end of the day, I think the deal was a successful deal, and I think it was well received. But I understand completely what you're saying. That amount of subscription, we should have been able to drive it down, but since it was priced already at that point in time, I don't think we had anticipated that much of demand before for the bonds itself.
Okay.
So I think what drove the demand was the amount of effort that we had put together to try to
Attract the interest.
attract investors.
That makes sense. That makes sense. But going forward, we do have an additional amount that we're going to be looking at for the airport, right? That's 150.
No, that's how much money we had. We have about 100 of the total issuance.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 110 million of bond funds, that new money that we had, and then we have about 40, 50 million dollars of grant funds
Mm-hmm.
that collectively we're using to try to renovate the airport.
Okay. Do we have any planned borrowings going forward for the airport?
I hope not.
I hope not to. It's always good for us to kind of just top it off.
Not to just. I guess this is in the same lines.
Mm-hmm.
When looking at the financial operations of the airport, and I had asked the controller to give me over the 5 years how the performance of the airport was, and when looking at it, I guess in government reporting, it's equivalent to net growth in assets is equivalent to net income, and everybody wants to see that bottom line. Well, I think over the last 5 years, with the exception of 2012, we saw an increase in net growth in assets, and that's good. However, I want to look above the line, because what really resulted in our increase in these assets were the grant funds that we were able receive. Going forward, as these projects start to diminish, our ability to be able to receive grants are going to diminish as well. So the focus that I am trying to direct the management to really center on is on the revenue streams while controlling expenses. Because if you look at over the last 5 years, we have actually had a net operating loss from operations before receiving non-operating income, particularly with the grants. So in order to do that, and this is one of the things the rating agencies, were really looking at, was our reliance on just the passengers and the transit numbers that are coming through. One of the criteria there is the non-aeronautical revenues, which of course is rental revenues. And we have a massive amount of property that we need to develop. And we'd like to work with you and this body to be able to develop a set of guidelines that an investor can walk in and say, I know what I'm going to try to get myself into. Just like a bank. When I give a commitment letter to a customer, he knows what is outlined. Well, we want to be able to set the guidelines to these potential investors, developers. This is what you can invest in, this is what you can develop in, and these are the terms that you have to live with. We're required by law that we have to rent everything at fair market value. There is a law in place right now that limits anything to 5 years, and then above that, we have to come back before this body. The challenge is, as investors, they don't want to have to come and negotiate once and then possibly come and negotiate it twice. And fully disclose, and then maybe able to walk out saying, well, now all my competitors know. Because until I sign the ink, none of the competitors know what was negotiated. So, I think going forward for the success of the airport is going to be the development of the non-aeronautical side or revenue stream. That's going to be a key component in order to be able to for us to be a success. We had projected in 2014, this year, that we actually might have a decrease in net assets, simply because last year we had about I know Carlos is freaking out on disclosing this. Last year we had about $16 million in capital grants. This year we're going to hover around 5-6, which has always been, the key number. So that's why I'm pushing management to focus on top of before capital grants. I want to be able to see that number as a positive number. So, and the more we can generate on non-aeronautical side, the less stress on the passenger facility charges, the less stress on our signatory airlines, thereby giving us the ability to be able to compete more aggressively to try to attract new routes and new airlines. Anyhow, sorry for that deviation.
Oh, no, that's exactly what we need to be talking about. I mean, basically, we're talking about the future of the airport, and
Yes.
what kind of funding streams you want the agency to be relying on. And basically what you're saying is that a lot of it has been dependent on grant revenues, but you want to focus more on operational revenues, particularly in the non-aeronautical leases that we can get at the airport. And that the biggest holdup right now is the legal requirement of anything in excess of 5 years requiring legislative approval. And that's something the community needs to definitely be hearing.
Yeah, I mean, and I can understand and the concern, but as dealing with investors, they just want to be able to know the guidelines. It's just like with the GITA QCs. You tell them what I need to deal with, and then I can make a decision. It'd be easier also for us to be able to market. In discussing the potential investors about developing some of the properties for the airport, the first thing that comes up to their mind is, well, what's the term? And when we say, well, we got to start with 5 years, and then we got to come back down to legislature, they'll sit back and say, well, okay, we'll talk later. So, I mean, and that's something I think, I really like to work with your office.
Yeah, I have been giving that a lot of thought, and one of the things that have come to my mind is, how the whole intent of coming down to the legislature, if it's more than 5 years, is kind of to make sure that because technically the asset, the airport is the people's asset.
Right.
And so it's to make sure that anything in excess of that 5-year period is going to have the return that we would want from something that's being committed for such a longer period.
Right.
And So, I mean, I can see why we would want to have legislative approval, but one of the things that we may be able to work together on, and we can talk more about this with all of you guys, is instead of saying come to the legislature and then we'll see, maybe the legislature can be forthcoming and say, these are the terms and conditions that we would like to see if it's going to be in excess of 5 years. Go out and find your investor, just make sure that that investor clears these hurdles, and we should be good to go.
Right.
You know, so instead of you guys coming in and saying, is this okay? The legislature comes to you and says, this is what will be okay.
Right.
And then you know what to go out and shop for.
Exactly.
Right? We can probably work something like that out. I think that'd be very reasonable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
The other question that I wanted to talk about was something I brought up when we were talking about BIC and Linda's nomination. That was the the biometrics up at the airport. You know,
Okay.
one of the things that we've always been wanting to push more for is getting a Philippine visa waiver, and of course a Chinese visa waiver. And one of the things that we've heard about in the discussions was if we had a state-of-the-art biometrics program to be able to track these visa waived types of visitors, it may help open the door a little bit wider for the State Department and Department of Interior to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and let Guam have a trial run because they have this state-of-the-art biometric system in place.
Right.
And so I was wondering, is this an investment that maybe the airport can think about? Because if we can fund it somehow, you know, oftentimes we're always trying to find out how we can get the feds to fund something, but maybe if we can fund something,
Right.
and then turn around and ask the feds to give us the authorization. I mean, that's kind of the reverse of what we've kind of gotten used to,
Right.
where we
right.
want the feds to fund something so we can do something. Now instead, maybe we can fund something so we can expect the feds to follow through. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on biometrics, the airport investing in that, and probably taking the lead, working with our Congresswoman, so that we can try and see if we can go about it in reverse and accomplish the same outcome.
I believe CPB, the Customs and Immigration Border Patrol, I just call them immigration. I believe they have set up whether with fingerprint systems right now. You know, the challenge dealing with them, and this is not to put, I mean, to say anything bad about them, is that they want to control what they want to control. So if we want to try to fund it, first of all, they're going to say, well, gosh, well, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that, you're going to have to do this. We have been always wanting to work with our partners up there, with TSA, with Customs and Immigration, etc. And we will always continue to do so. We have, of course, depending on how much it'll cost and the potential traffic that it can generate, we'd have to do the numbers. We do have a laundry list of, wish lists, things that we want to get done up at the airport. And we could try to maybe look at prioritizing, but we'd be more than happy to see how we can work with you. Of course, because it's a point of entry, it deals with immigration. And they're going to be, that's where the buck stops. So if we're willing to try to do something with them, they have to be at least willing to accommodate. I just discovered the other day that I believe the challenge we have right now is when all these passengers arrive, sometimes it gets really bottlenecked at immigration. And we are asking, can you guys put more people out there? Well, I understand that the number of people is you take Hawaii and their personnel and Guam and their personnel, and they're allocated under one region. So depending upon the flow or the number of visitors in Peter Roy, I don't know if that's correct. Where's Peter Roy?
You're still here, Ed.
Yeah, okay. I thought he ran away from me. But it falls under one area. Going straight to your answer, yes, we try to work with you. We will look at our budgets. If we're able to generate non-aeronautical revenue streams, we'd be able to do a lot more for the airport and for the people. Our point is develop that portion, reduce and plane passenger costs, become more attractive, and then see how else we can fund other projects like this project that you're referring to.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we can make so much more progress on, not just at the airport, but just throughout our government, is being able to marry what we would like to see implemented at the policy level with also what we were able to empower you with to be able to achieve that.
Sure.
And I think that we can definitely figure out a way to make the non-aeronautical investment issue amenable for
Yeah.
the airport and for the investors, so we can bring them in. And I think that we can do that in a way that will set a standard that the legislature is comfortable with,
Sure.
but doesn't necessarily. We don't want to ever be just a gatekeeper. You know, our
Sure.
whole role here is to try and make things good for our people.
Sure.
And if we can do that in advance rather than on the back end, I think that would be a healthy thing for Island.
And
So
it'll help us
we can
market,
definitely
yeah.
work on that. Yeah.
You know, we've tasked management to put together a comprehensive marketing and promotions plan. Not just, you know, for Guam, but we wanted to also coordinate it with GIDA and GVB. And that's in the progress. You know, when I see a marketing plan, all I see really is just funding for personnel. That's not in my marketing budget. I want more. I want to be able to go out there and I want to be able to attract. The board has already worked towards coming up with an incentive plan, and we've already began working with GVB in trying to find new routes, new airlines who are willing to try to come in on off-peak hours, not during the regular peak season, but off-peak, and giving them incentives. Right now, we're getting nothing, so to give away, something is better than not getting anything at all. So, anyhow, we'd be more than happy to work with you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ed. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Aguilar? Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir, for continuing to want to serve. I think it's very exciting. The vision, the work, the pace. You have a really good team up there, and every time I'm there, it's real clear that people are cohesive and focused, and I truly appreciate that. In your testimony, you talked about core values. You talked about bottom-up and updating your strategic plan. The last time we were doing a confirmation hearing for a board member, I had raised customer service, whether or not they are GIAA employees or from vendors who are really our vendors. I would hope that your core values would embrace the importance of customer service for diversity, for all the different cultures and the skill levels and the different abilities. And so is that something you think might be included as a core value?
One of the biggest core values I want to have incorporated is caring. Because if we care for our job, we care for our family, we care for our customers who are our passengers, we care for our tenants, if that's integrated in each and every employee, then that should be able to just emanate into our partners up there with TSA, with CPB, with United and all the airlines. If each employee walks around with these core values that they believe in, that we also care for each other, then it should be able to take care of itself. So that's one of the values I do like, and I've mentioned it before to management, and that's what I want to see have evolve.
I really do appreciate that. I think it's real important as our residents leave and then as our visitors arrive and as our residents come home. You know, just that sense of welcome back.
Sure.
We're glad you're here. Have a safe trip. See you when you come back, right? And so I thank you for that. Help me understand exactly what a how did you say that?
Non-aeronautical. It means
Aeronautical revenue.
rental revenue, wherever I can.
Property?
Property development, pretty much so.
So we have a lot of property up there that you can rent.
Well, if you look at south of that Pac Air property, all the way down, and I believe we have more properties up near the Papas areas, and we still have some property up there, and I don't know where else. That place is so big, but pretty much that's the primary area that we can look to develop.
That's absolutely exciting.
Yeah.
And so as you dream and dream big, right, I would hope that you think about investments that families would like to go to in transit, local families would like to go up there for, or people who are going to visit want to come to Guam for. Guam really needs a science museum, a family museum. We just don't have that kind of attraction in this area, and that is something huge that it's such beautiful land over there. And if you get everybody indulge in those kinds of activities and just enjoying Guam while you're exploring science, that is a marvel. Um, I hope you think about maybe really having somebody create a park area up there. It's a beautiful part of our island, and you can see. I was at Papa's maybe 4 weeks ago or something, but they were showing me how you can see the whole island just about.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And if you had like a top-rate park up there where the kids can play, you've got all I know Senator McCready, I'm sure, can to help you decide what kind of equipment can be found in the most beautiful park in this region. But it's wellness.
Yeah.
It's wellness and
Right.
it's health. And I think that that is a core value.
Right.
It's being able to breathe. It's being able to get out and walk and enjoy outside.
Right.
Right. I think that's really important. But those kinds of features, Science Museum, a children's museum, a park, miniature golf, but something that once we start and it's maintained is something that everybody on Guam and returning visitors want. Hey, if you're going to Guam, you got to check out their science museum. Or you know
Right.
what? There's this miniature golf thing that's right by the airport. It's like a lot of fun, especially when the sun is setting.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited and hopeful for what you've got going, and I stand ready to help you in whatever way I can.
I know one of the things when developing these areas, that we have to be very concerned about is to compete with the private sector, and we have to be very cognizant of that. I'm not too sure if anyone in the private sector is ready to build a children's museum or a science museum, but those are great ideas. If we're able to structure terms that make it attractive, maybe combined with a GITA QC, because a museum, it takes a little bit of a startup and a little bit of a risk. Maybe it can become a very attractive area, and you're right to be able to overlook. Now, the Teason Parkway many years ago when I was at GITA was designed for public benefit use. So, I haven't seen the plans as of late, but, there should be some areas there. Of course, we have to be cognizant of the FAA regulations and not to, for safety reasons, etc. But, those are great ideas, and I've taken note of them.
Thank you, sir. And then just one more comment. As I believe it's FAA that's decided which homes will be mitigated for noise reduction.
Right.
Right. Have we thought that the whole island should be mitigated? No, when you consider that we're 31 miles long, 4 miles wide, and the paths of our aircraft. I mean, it's really, you really fly over everybody.
Yeah.
And I just think that we really should look at mitigating noise for all of the homes.
We could look into that. I would want to put the biometric thing before I can look for the funding for that. I know there was a study done.
Right.
I know, and it identified which homes had to be mitigated, etc.
Right.
Either the properties were purchased or the homes were actually outfitted, etc. We can look into that. I don't know how well it will be received, but that's a point we can look into.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Yamashita. Senator Hagan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I guess I hadn't just listening to some of your comments in terms of your testimony, your contributions over the course of the last year and a half, and then also your vision in terms of where you would like to see the airport authority as well as all the team members and the partners. I think it's really self-explanatory. I think from my perspective, I really appreciate what you had discussed with the chairman in regards to your financial expertise, looking at the non-operational or the operational revenue base and ensuring that there's a good balance between that and the non-aeronautical activities that the airport participates in. And then you also highlighted about being cautious about not competing directly with the private sector, because you definitely have some pristine property out there that could move in the direction of development, but then just encouraging that partnership so that in fact you have a commercial or private enterprise come in and utilize the property rather than the airport facilitating or constructing some of these activities. I think is really more or less the right direction to take as a government entity. One thing that I really also appreciate with regards to the information that is provided is that in 2013, fortunately you had had an excused absence, one excused absence of every single meeting that you were in attendance
I'm
of.
still trying to figure out what and why it was.
I think you better talk to
I have to ask the
Mr.
board
Martinez.
secretary, but, yeah.
You better talk to Uncle Peter Roy. But in this particular case, one of the prevalent questions I had asked in previous discussions was the attendance. I mean, are you able to provide the direct commitment, the time attendance, and directly participate in a lot of activities? And just looking at your record, 2014, you've been present at all your meetings, and then also in 2013 with one excused absence, certainly is reflective of your commitment to the airport. So that goes without saying. And I would be remiss if I did not highlight that you are a graduate of what particular high school? Enough said. So you know where I was leading with that. So you do have my support and continued
Thank you
success
very much, Senator.
in your endeavors. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's either FD, Jonia, or Maroon.
Thank you, Senator Adam. Senator Ada?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Antalan, thank you again for coming
you,
before this panel for your reconfirmation to the airport board. Just like to thank you for your continued service to the people of Guam. And it's just like Senator Hagen said. I like how they did this and gave us a record of your attendance for the board meeting. I think it's very important, especially for the authority, the airport authority, to know that their members will be there when they need them to be there, and giving them your utmost undivided attention, really, when it comes to these meetings is really important, not only for the authority, but also the people of Guam, knowing that you were appointed there and that you take this very seriously. And I don't have any problems voting on your reconfirmation, and you have my full support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to say that when prior to becoming the chairman back in October and working on the bond financing, I was putting in about a couple of hours a month to try to get the financing through. Then when I became chairman, my hourly wage, because we get paid $50 a month, so we try to keep the meetings to 2 hours, so that gets to $25 an hour. Well, my hourly wage, depending upon how many hours I spend with the airport now, has gone below minimum wage. So, I'm always accessible. I'm always available. I try to attend as much time with the airport as possible, not forgetting, who really gives me my paycheck, and that's my boss.
And sir, that is a lot to be said. That you give that true value into public service.
Thank you, Senator.
And we're going to work on raising the minimum wage. Senator McCready?
You're raising the board fees? Just checking.
I guess I'll end with that one. First of all, I want to say welcome back.
Thank you.
I know we expected you the last time here, but
Yep.
It's good to see you healthy and 15 pounds lighter.
15 pounds
and
lighter.
looking good.
Thank you.
And I appreciate just to echo the sentiments of the last speakers. Is I appreciate your ability and your commitment to working basically for free and trying to move this airport in the right direction. I know one thing that I've always said about the airport is the surrounding employees that make that airport move forward and sustainable is what really drives the airport. So I appreciate all of their efforts and of course your efforts, and you'll no doubt have a 15-0 vote. I'm almost positive, and I just want no questions. I just want to let you know you have my full support.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thanks, and I just kind of wanted to end it on a note of perspective. When I first came into office, I had a certain view of autonomous agencies. I looked at them like they were kind of just operating within a silo, within their own walls, and kind of neglecting all the other important aspects of what the government is relying on, and that they were enjoying a much more lavish type of existence than a lot of the line agencies. My perspective has changed over the months and over my term, and it's there is a key function, of course, that the autonomous agencies provide, and I think that what we need to work on going forward, not just with the airport, but with all of our autonomous agencies, is trying to change the dialogue so that instead of it being about, what does this agency need versus what does everybody else need, I think we can try and pair up more closely what the island needs and how we're able to match what the island needs with what you guys can justify as an internal investment as well. And that's kind of why I bring up the biometric thing. I mean, that would pretty much fall in line with where the airport operates. It'll have to do with immigration. But what it will do is it'll help really open the door for us to really push for that Philippine visa waiver, really
Right.
push for that Chinese visa waiver. So it's kind of those win-win situations. And I think that if we focus more on those, I think that the island will be better off. And so I look forward to working with you and the rest of the board and the rest of the airport over the remainder of your new term as soon as we get through confirmation, which I think is going to be pretty fluid. But I thank
I
you
don't
Ed,
have
for
to
your
come back
service.
next year, right? I mean, it's just
I
a
don't think so.
3-year term.
Yeah. No, you got some time in there. So you, Vic, and Linda can really get your hands dirty. Yeah, that's true. But thank you very much, Ed, for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. And if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and have the confirmation hearing for Mr. Ed Antilan conclude, and we'll move on to Senator McCready's bill number 277. Thank you, Ed, and thank you to all the airport folks who showed up. Thank you. Senator McCready, if you can provide an opening statement.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. Thank you for holding this hearing. I also want to thank my colleagues for being here today. I especially want to thank the police department for coming and testifying for Bill 277. Bill 277 sets a move-over provision in Guam law that mandates that drivers approaching any emergency vehicle or tow truck move over one lane if possible, and if not, reduce their speed. Now, based on some information that my office has obtained from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, between 2003 to 2012, 138 officers nationwide were killed in the line of duty due to being struck by a vehicle. And of course, that would be one too many for Guam if that was to happen. Well over 40 states has already have the move over law in place, and I think on Thursday the Guam Police Department will be holding a fallen officers memorial to honor the sacrifice of Guam's peace officers who died in the line of duty. Legislation like this is meant to keep all our peace officers and emergency personnel, police, fire, ambulance, drivers, trucks, and tow operators safe while working on our roadways. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for allowing me to speak on this bill. I thank you for having the public hearing, and I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCready. I do have two individuals who signed up to testify in favor of the legislation. That is Officer Manny Chong and Officer John Edwards. Please join us. And thank you for making time today. I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Mr. Chong. If you can just state your name for the record, you may begin at any time you're comfortable.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Lieutenant Manny Chong. I'm for the Guam Police Department Highway Patrol Division. I'm here to provide written testimony for the Chief of Police, Fred E. Bernalio Jr., regarding Bill number 277-32. Okay. Again, good afternoon, Senator Nicholas, Senator McCready, Senator Yamashita, Senator Ogan, and Senator Ada. When is in Hafa Day, the Guam Police Department, GPD, has reviewed and supported Senator Brian McCready's introduction of Bill number 277-32, an act to add a new section 3349 to Article 3, Chapter 3, Title 16 of the Guam Code Annotated, relative to the duties of drivers when approaching stationary vehicles displaying emergency or warning lights. I would like to thank you for taking the time to put this legislation together. From my personal experience and through my observance of others that have worked in the field of public safety, I have seen and experienced firsthand the dangers associated with conducting traffic stops and conducting on-scene traffic investigations. These dangers are not just limited to first responders, but also to members of our island who commute on our public roadways. As we know, laws are subject to interpretation. During my review of Bill 277-32, I have found that its current verbiage leaves room for question. Therefore, I would like to recommend the following amendments in order to make the proposed law and its intention clear. Section 3349, duties of driver when approaching stationary vehicles displaying emergency or warning lights. Section 1. When an authorized emergency vehicle is stationary and making use of emergency flashing lights for the purpose of performing duties in accordance with Title 10 of the Guam Code annotated, or a tow truck is stationary and making the use of emergency flashing lights for the purpose of providing services or performing duties in accordance with Chapter 12, Title 16 of the Guam Code annotated, subsection A, the driver of an approaching vehicle when driving on a public roadway with two or more lanes, regardless of its direction of travel, and in no less than 100 feet of approaching said emergency vehicle or tow truck, shall decrease its speed, which is not to exceed 25 miles per hour, and shall maintain the speed of 25 miles per hour until the driver has passed at least 50 feet from said emergency vehicle or tow truck, unless otherwise directed by a peace officer. Subsection B. In addition to subsection A, the driver of an approaching vehicle traveling in a lane that is closest to said emergency and or tow truck using emergency flashing lights shall, within no less than 100 feet from its approach, vacate its lane of travel by merging into lane furthest away from said emergency vehicle or tow truck. If such movement cannot be safely accomplished, the driver shall reduce his or her speed, traveling no more than 10 miles per hour, maintaining the speed until the driver has passed at least 50 feet from said emergency vehicle or tow truck, unless otherwise directed by a peace officer. Section 2. Any individual violating this section as a first-time offense shall be guilty of an infraction punishable by a fine of $100 and pay an increased fine of an additional $50 for a second offense and or any other offense thereafter. All monies collected under this section shall be deposited into the Police Services Fund. As it stands, current move-over laws in the United States require motorists to change lanes and give safe clearance to vehicles on the side of the road that they are responding to emergencies or effectuating traffic stops. These laws are curtailed to the structure and roadways that are in the United States, in which most highways or freeways do not have a center median lane. Although we currently have a law in place that requires all vehicles to pull over to the fullest right lane shoulder of a public roadway during a traffic stop, the conditions and structures of our public roadways differ from those in the United States. In unforeseen instances or on occasions, traffic stops, accidents, stalled vehicles, and other emergency responding vehicles may occupy the center or median lane, or even an inner passing or oncoming lane. By making the aforementioned amendments to this bill, the law will not only be clear, but it will be structured to the condition of our island's roadways in which a traffic pullover, traffic accident, stalled vehicle, or emergency response may not take place in a traditional fashion. Should the bill remain in the way it is currently written, it will only be enforceable by those emergency vehicles or tow trucks that are at a traditional stop of being at the furthest right shoulder of the roadway. Furthermore, by decreasing the speed of motorists to 25 miles per hour upon approach of an emergency vehicle or tow truck that has its emergency lights activated, we are providing safety for those drivers that would be traveling in the lane closest to the emergency vehicle or tow truck and have to execute a lane change, as the slower speeds of other motorists would lessen the chances of an accident occurring and also deter speeding motorists in the area. From a traditional standpoint, strict penalties have been deterrents to repeat infractions. Whether applied to a school rule, work policy, or law, by making the aforementioned amendments to increasing the fine for motorists who violate this law, motorists are held accountable for their actions and deterring others from committing further offenses. I strongly feel that these recommended amendments will make this proposed law functional in carrying out its intended purpose of keeping our island's public safety officials, emergency responders, tow truck operators, and other motorists safe on our roadways. The safety of our law enforcement and emergency responders, as well as that of the members of our community, is paramount. This piece of legislation takes a step in that direction. I fully support the bill's enactment and humbly ask members of Imina 32 na Legislaturan Guahan to do the same. I would like to express our appreciation for giving us the opportunity to provide our position on Bill 277-32. Dunkluna Sizus Maasi, sincerely, Fred E. Berdali Jr., Chief of Police.
Thank you, Lieutenant Chong. Does that conclude your overall testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Officer Edwards, thank you for joining us today. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Senators. My name is Officer John Henry Edwards II. I wanted to come in here and speak today on behalf of the bill because I was a previous law enforcement officer in Phoenix, Arizona. That law does apply there, and it's simply it's in place to protect the officers and the motorists as well. One of an officer's biggest confrontation that he can have, and one of his most dangerous encounters will be on a traffic stop. We're taught to approach a vehicle from the rear and not bisect the plane of the door panel that bisects the vehicle, so we can have clear shot of inside the vehicle. The problem with that is our back is to traffic, and I have personal experience on Route 1 on a traffic stop after there were some issues with the way that we were pulling vehicles over. We have to pull the vehicle over, bisect it, have it offset to the left with the wheels turned to the left. It's for officer safety issues and also for the violator safety as well. Vehicle got too close and their side right view mirror clipped my radio. The problem is that the motorist didn't stop, continued going. I don't know how fast he was going, but it was fast enough for him to knock off his side view mirror. The issue has always been in the fact that motorists are not traveling the speed limits, and this gives us another effective tool to combat traffic violations out there. With vehicles moving out of the way, we're able to have a small sense of security that we can, I can't say lessen or put down our guard, but we can at least effectuate our traffic stops and conduct our business without the overall fear of being struck from behind. Now, will it completely reduce it? No, it will not, because you're going to have motorists out there who just totally violate it. And plus, motorists need to be well aware of the traffic conditions, surface conditions, and the width of the roadway. The other thing is that we as law enforcement officers do not like to step in front of the operator to face the oncoming traffic. I see a lot of times we have to do that. I've had to do it because I'm scared of what the vehicles are going to do when they're coming up behind us. And you have motorists, especially at nighttime, that are drunk. And a lot of times officers are struck by a drunk driver. I was just looking at my phone. I receive notifications from the officer down Memorial page. There was just a trooper killed, I believe in Kentucky, just here 2 days ago, conducting a traffic crash investigation by a motorist who just didn't slow down. He swerved between two cars and hit him and killed him. And the state that I was previously a law enforcement officer in, it was a big tool for us because we could actually just get the license plate, we could jot it down real quick, go to our CJIS system or NCIC system, pull it up, and made the registered owner responsible. I thought that the law was in place here, but it wasn't until we did some research on it. But the thing is, I'm very glad that Senator McCready brought this up because, again, it just is another effective tool for us to use out there to combat the violations. And I'm hoping that the law is not read out and it's actually enacted for us so we can use it.
Thank you, Officer Edwards, for making the time to come down. Officer Chong, thank you also as well. Are there any individuals who would also like to testify on Bill 277? If none, Senator McCready, do you have any statements or questions for these?
I just want to say that thank you for the testimony, both of you guys. I'll work with the chairman to add those amendments. And just in your experience, both, I mean, I know you have previous experience in Arizona and Guam, and Lieutenant Chong, I know you have, as a lieutenant, you've been in the police force for a while. Is speed limit? Would that be a problem? I mean, 25 miles an hour, that's still kind of fast. Is it something that we want to put a maximum speed limit on, or is it something in your experience that it's better to put a minimum speed limit? Because 25 answer the question because I know it's the chief of police's uh, testimony, but I guess I'll take it up with the chief. But I kind of think maybe 25 miles is, is still kind of fast when you're talking about a human being in a car. So,
Well, sir, one of the biggest things that we're gonna have to combat with that is trying to figure out exactly how fast they work.
Officer, would you don't mind just turn on your mic and speak in? That way
I'm sorry.
we do transcribe.
One of our biggest issues that we're gonna have is trying to determine the speed that they're actually going. Our vehicles aren't equipped with radars in the front and the rear. And that's the only way that we'd actually be able to determine the speed is by using some type of speed device. 25 miles per hour, yes, sir, you're correct. It is fast, and if someone is struck by that, it can cause severe injury, if not death. Again, if the biggest problem we're going to have is combating how we're going to figure out how fast they were actually going, unless a crash occurs and there's skid marks or something of that nature. But 25 miles per hour, it is fast. If I'm not mistaken, I believe on certain roadways where the speed is reduced, I thought it was 15 miles per hour because that was what I remember reading when I was in the States. But however you, the body here, and the chief deem necessary, it would be greatly appreciated.
okay, we'll work with the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator McCready. Any other senators have any questions for these officers? Thank you, gentlemen, very much. And if there are no other individuals wishing to testify, we'll go ahead and consider Bill 277's hearing concluded. And that will also conclude our overall proceedings for today. The committee will continue to receive testimony on all items heard this afternoon. Please address any written testimony to the Committee on Aviation. Thank you, Officer. Ground Transportation, Regulatory Concerns, and Future Generations, and may be submitted via electronic mail at senatorsannicholas@gmail.com or hand delivery to the legislature's mailroom or to Suite 203 in the main legislative building, 155 Hester Place, Hecate, Guam. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance and for your attention to today's hearing. We are now adjourned at 2:55